It seems as though it's going to be a good day for birding. We've already managed to find one special bird, and this is Safari Live. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to another Sunset Safari on Safari Live. My name is Taylor, and on camera with me today is Senzo. And this is live, this is interactive, of course it's happening right now. For any new viewers that we have watching today, you're welcome to ask myself and Tristan some questions. You can hashtag Safari Live on Twitter, or you can chat on the YouTube chat. But before we sort of dwell any longer, before that special bird we had a moment ago flies away, let's take another look. Now, I'm very lucky to have seen this little bird, and the only reason that I spotted it, I think just up a little bit to the left, there we go, it's just on your left hand corner, just hiding amongst the leaves at the moment, is that it flew into this tree. It actually caught my attention. I was like, what bird was that? Flying off into the distance, and then by luck it was a pearl-spotted owlet, a very beautiful but very small owl that we get in this area. The barred owlet and them can be confused quite easily. And from this spot over here, it would be very, very easy to actually confuse them if you think about it. But some very quick key identifying features, as this one looks like it's about to go to sleep, is all those white spots on top of its head. The barred owlet doesn't have that. And then also, if it would be kind enough to turn its head around, you'll actually see the black sort of false eyes that it has on the back of its head too. How cool is that? We were lucky yesterday morning, we had a rose eagle owl, and we spent quite a bit of time with it. So it's nice to have another sighting of another owl out in the area. But perhaps it'll be around a little bit later. Maybe it's going to have a bit of a rest before it goes off and searches for a meal. So Linda, you said that you love owls. I think we're very, very lucky, very fortunate to see something like that. But let's carry on. Let's see what else the bush has got out for us today. That is very nice. Maybe it's just going to roost here for a bit. They're normally active during the day, but they're also active at night. It might just be, well, out here, potentially looking for some crickets or grasshoppers. They do like to eat insects most of the time, but they can catch all sorts of other things. Remember, most of the birds are opportunistic, especially the ones that predate. But I think it's going to be a very, very good show this afternoon, as my dear friend Tristan, who's already out and about and found a cat for you. So let's go across to him and he can show you which cat he's got.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our Sunset Safari. As you can see in the background, there are the spots of little Xongile. So we've already found Xongile, and guess what? The best news about it, well, there's two good parts about it. Look at the size of her belly, nice and big and full, and she's got company in the form of her brother Hosana, who's lying over there. So I think this is the first time these two have been together in a very long time. So there's Hosana, he's just lying in the ditch. And so the two of them are together, and they definitely must have had a kill because both bellies are massive. Now, before we carry on and get into our leopards for the day, my name is Tristan, and on camera today I've got Sebastian. And remember, this is a live interactive safari, which means that you can get hold of us on hashtag Safari Live on Twitter or on the YouTube chat should you want to ask any questions. But what a way to start our afternoon, to have two leopards lounging about in close proximity to the camp. So they're just north of the camp, very, very close to where we were tracking leopard yesterday. And so I think that little Xongile must have made a kill yesterday, and Hosana has come in and possibly tried to rob it, and now they're just lying together. I believe that at some stage today they were seen walking around together and lying right next to one another. So that bond between them is still not completely severed, and they still have some sort of a connection, which is really cool. So you can see Xongile, though, she's fast asleep, and I'd imagine with a belly like that, these two are not going to be moving too much today. I think they're going to be in a situation where they're probably going to spend most of the day relaxing and taking it very easy. Now, the weather conditions today have changed quite a bit compared to yesterday afternoon. It's not nearly as windy as what we were seeing yesterday. It's also a little bit warmer, so that means that I'm pretty sure they're going to seek shelter in the shade for as long as possible, and they'll probably go for a drink around sunset. That's what I would imagine. But other than that, I don't think I'm going to see too much movement from them today. Interesting, though, that I believe this morning Tundi was seen at the dam, and she was moving in a northerly direction, so she seems to have also been in this general vicinity overnight. So it must have been a busy evening around the camp. And I believe a lot of you are very excited to see the cubs together. It is incredibly exciting. It's the first time that I've actually seen the two of them together since the disappearance of Kruger, which is all the way back a few months ago. So super glad that the two of them are hanging about and that are actually spending time together. It must be quite cool, and I'm hoping that we're going to see them kind of go together and groom one another and walk around together. It'll be really good, and I wonder if this isn't going to be a few days of us seeing them side by side. Certainly hope so. The nice thing is that they're deep into Vuyatela. They're right in the central part, so hypothetically we should have these two for a few days to come, which is fantastic news, and I'm certainly very glad that both of them are here. Oh, Justin, you want to know who I think is the older one of the two? Justin, difficult to say. It's at the end of the day, you've got, they were born outside of where any of us could actually see, and it's, and if they are older, it's a few minutes. It's not really too long that one is older than the other, so I'm not sure. Maybe Hosana, just given that he tends to be a little bit more adventurous. It'll be interesting to know. I didn't get to spend a lot of time with them when they were first tiny little cubs, so it'll be interesting to know from Brent and Jamie and James whether or not who was the most bold of the two of them. Maybe the one that was born first was a little bit more bold, but of course that's just an assumption. There's really no way to tell exactly what the situation is and who came out first, unfortunately. The only way we would know that is if we had a camera there when she gave birth, but again, like I say, we wouldn't have been there. Vicky, wondering if it's normal for brother and sister to share a kill. Well, Vicky, at the end of the day, these two have shared many a kill together when they were younger and with Mom, and they're still quite young. Theoretically, they could have still been with Kruger had she been around, and that would mean that they might have still been sharing kills. Also, you'll find in the leopard world, it's not uncommon for them to share kills. We know that we've had Xongile with Mvula and Tandi in the same area, not too far from where we are now. So every now and then you will find that leopards do come together over a carcass. They might not necessarily actually share it and eat off it and allow one another to eat off it. So you find when the big males come in, they don't let anyone come near their carcass. But with these two, they know each other, they grew up together, and sharing of carcasses was what they did for their formative years, and that is probably still ingrained in them. And because neither of them are territorial yet, it means that they don't actually have to worry too much about sharing the kill and feeding off it. They still know one another. And who knows how much they actually spend time together south of our boundary. And I think at this stage you probably find that these two have spent a lot more time together than we've actually know. We keep missing them, but I wonder if they haven't been spending a lot of time in places where we haven't been. Now we're going to, like I say, spend most of our afternoon with them. Oh, well, hello girl, you just popped up to say hello. So there's another car that's just arrived. Look at her, isn't she beautiful? She's getting bigger and bigger by the day. She's still small in comparison to Hosana. Hosana looks positively massive where he's lying in comparison to her, but she's most definitely growing by the day, and the more I see her, the more Kruger-like she looks. She's tending to really get that same sort of facial feature as her mother. But like I was saying, we're going to spend time here this afternoon. We're going to enjoy our afternoon as they lounge about in the shade, and while we do that, let's go back to Taylor and see where she's off to this afternoon and whether or not she's going to go on a spotted cat mission of her own.
I'm not sure. We just had a nice troop of baboons, but they moved off into the drainage line, I'm afraid. But there's quite a few different animals around at the moment. So in terms of maybe predators being around, I'm not so sure, because there's many eyes and ears. Firstly, we've got baboons. We don't have them anymore. We had a group of waterbuck as well, but quite shy. But we do have some impala just in front. So there's lots and lots of different species. I also saw some squirrels sunning themselves out on the knob thorns. So if there's a leopard around, it's doing a very good job of hiding at the moment. Because like I said, you've got different mammals around here, and they all see at different levels. Of course, the baboons can go up in trees and soak in the squirrels, so they have got a height advantage, being able to scan in the distance. And well, impala have got phenomenal eyesight as is. And the waterbuck will be around there too. But so it's very quiet. Apparently Tandy was seen around here at some point this morning and headed back in the direction of Gari Katlan, which is the road that we're on now. But I don't really have any more information. I don't know if she was fat, if she was on a kill, if she'd come to drink water at the dam and then was returning to a kill. I don't have any of this information, which is of course would help me, and it was very important. So I don't know if she headed into a thick area and then the guides just stopped following her. But like I said, there's a lot of animals around here. It doesn't mean that there's not necessarily a predator around, but they definitely have a good chance of spotting a leopard if there were to be one. There's a whole drainage system over here, which we're quite familiar with because the Nkuhumas at one point spent a lot of time down in here. But sure, to get in there is very, very difficult because a lot of it is tamboti trees and they sort of grow in a grove and are quite densely packed together, which makes it very difficult to sort of penetrate and get through. So we'll see if we can hear any birds alarming or any monkeys or anything really. Maybe we're going to find some elephants around here. We'll also check Buffalo's Hook Dam at some point. Tristan's of course already found not one but 2 spotted cats. They're fast asleep, but perhaps they'll get up and do something exciting.
Promise. Now, I was just quickly chatting to one of the other guides who is just close by, just asking me a question quickly, but you'll see that Xongile will probably move a little bit now. They're going to start their vehicle and they're moving out to allow space for somebody else, so she might pop her head up again. She's quite a curious little cat. Often when there's movement of cars around her, tend to see her moving and checking and looking what's going on, so I wouldn't be surprised if she does pop her head up to see everybody and to see what's happening. Hosana has not really moved much. I can see he's breathing, so he's okay, but he's not moved much at all. Now, of course, it's been a tough week when it comes to the, well, tough actual month when it comes to the leopards. We've had lots of bad news, so I'm sure a lot of you are aware of Salesh in the west. Is no longer with us, which is a very sad situation. Now, there's no known cause for her death yesterday. She died yesterday, but she was seen in the morning moving and scent marking and then found in the afternoon. So we're not sure what's happening. They are going to be doing a necropsy on her, and we'll be able to then fill you all in with more information as to what actually happened a little bit later in the week. And it's definitely something maybe internal or particularly could be a snake bite, but we'll know a little bit more once the week is out. So for those of you that are asking and wondering about Salesh, that's the story. No one really knows yet what the situation is, but she certainly will go under a few tests, and those might take a bit of time to get the results back, but as soon as we know more, we will let you all know. So hopefully these 2 youngsters are going to stay nice and safe and stay in the central part of Djuma under the protection of Tingana and try and stay out of the way of all these other threats that are around. Now, I know a lot of you are saying that a lot of the leopards, we've had quite a few losses, but a lot of them have been from lion related, which is unfortunately part of it. Anka, you were saying with Karula not around, who's going to force Hosana out of his territory? Well, Anka, it would never have been Karula that would have forced him out anyway. A male is not forced by the female, he's forced by other males. So unfortunately for Hosana, with Tingana, Gajima, Mvula, potentially Shivambalana, I don't know where he is at the moment, but he could be around. You've got Quarantine, Anderson, and even this unknown male that was seen in Buffalo's Hook recently. Those 3 are those males are the ones that are going to be putting pressure on Hosana. So he's going to have to try and eke out a small territorial area within all of that to be able to actually survive and to be able to spend time in this particular section, and I think he's going to have a really tough time to find his way in this area. There is a small territory just to the south of us, so Little Gari Hoffman's, that Tingana spends a bit of time, but not as much as he does up this further northern side, so he might be able to eke out a territory there to start off with, and then as Tingana gets older, push up. But it's anyone's guess at this stage. Also remember that there's a number of different leopards all on the fringes that will be vying for this territory. There's females here, there's the Xongile, Tandi, Shadow, these kind of girls that are going to attract males in, and that's going to make it very difficult for a male leopard like Hosana to actually end up being dominant within this particular section. Also, we don't particularly want him dominant here on Djuma because there would be then quite a bit of inbreeding. So we would have a situation where he's going to breed with his sister or his stepsisters in the form of Tundi and Shadow. You could potentially breed with them, and so you're having a bloodline that is being compromised. It's better for him to be shifted slightly, and for different males like Djuma or Anderson, Tingana to be mating with these females so that we keep the genetic mix good. So it's more that Hosana is going to move. Xongile herself at the moment is sitting in an interesting position, because I really am not sure what's going to happen. Now with Salahesh away in the west, it's really a massive piece of land that's up for grabs. I would imagine that Insele is going to start pushing into it a little bit. We know Tiani's around, there's also Moya on that side, but Shadow herself might also start moving a little bit further to the west as well. So it could leave that section now for Xongile to survive and grow up in this area and be able to actually secure this for herself. It's going to be really interesting to watch what goes on. So it's going to be a very sort of key period for Xongile, and I hope that with all of this that's been going on, that she can secure this little northwestern corner as her own for the next few months and years, and start getting herself dominant within this Djuma system as continue the lineage that is Karula. It would be really great if we had Xongile here for that much longer and she became the sort of new queen of this particular section. But you can see she's a very sleepy cat at this stage. Still stretched out, tail out. Oh, there we go. Tiffany, you're wondering how long leopards normally sleep for? Well, Tiffany, obviously it's a difficult thing. They don't normally sleep for any amount of time. It just depends on what goes on around them. So sometimes leopards will sleep in a situation like this where they're full bellied, it's quite warm. They'll probably sleep most of the day away and only start to really get fairly active around sunset. You'll find though if she hadn't eaten, she might have been far more active. We know Xongile and Hosana, both of them are fairly active cats. When they are not full, they tend to move around quite a bit, so she might have walked around during the day quite a bit. So it's difficult to say. I mean, sometimes they'll rest for 10 minutes, sometimes they rest for an hour, sometimes it's 10 hours. There's really no sort of yardstick to say that they will rest for this amount of period, well, this amount of time per resting session. You can also imagine now if, let's say, hypothetically, elephants came through here and chased them. There's all kinds of factors that will determine how long they sleep for. But theoretically, within a 24-hour period, these guys can easily sleep over 10 hours and recuperate and rest. But they're not quite as bad as the lions in terms of sleep. The lions tend to sleep much longer periods of time during the day. A lion can go up to 20 hours a day, whereas these guys tend to be a little bit shorter and move around a lot more than what the lions do. Particularly individuals that are considered still nomadic. At the end of the day, none of Hosana or Xongile has a defined territory. They're not scent marking. They're just moving around in this area, their natal area, and growing up. Once they become territorial, then you'll find that the movement pattern, they tend to slow down a little bit. They don't cover nearly as much ground every single day as they try and sort of seek safety and stay out of the way of all of these other territorial individuals. John, you're wondering at what age will Xongile be strong enough to hold a territory? Well, John, it depends on a lot of things. I mean, as we were saying, the disappearance of Karula, the death now of Salahesh is going to shake up the dynamics within this area. But if we take Tiani, Inchila, Tsakani, who else has been the young females? Kuchava. These are all young females around us at the moment, and those young females, none of them have set up a defined territory just yet. None of them are actually mated and have cubs and are scent marking extensively, but they're all about 3.5 to 4 years old now, if you take a rough estimate of all of them, and yet they haven't set it up completely yet. So I would imagine that it's going to take her a little bit longer. We know her mother set up her territory and started having cubs already at 2.5, so it is possible, and if things play out the way that it could, potentially she might be able to be big and strong enough to do the same thing in this area. She might have a lucky gap now in the fact that there's these two really prominent females with massive territories that have left or have left behind these territories. That then allows for these leopards to form a small little territory, and so we might have a lot of young females with small territories, and then as time goes on they might expand those, and you'll then get a little bit more of a sort of defined distribution between them all. But it's certainly going to be very interesting to see how it goes. It's at least, as we were talking about last night, at least there are some young females in the area. Now, Alice, if you can just repeat the name there again for me, please. Sorry, there's a car right here, so I didn't hear very nicely. Deadhead Tom, you want to know how do they know when a territory is opened up or where there's no longer? Well, it's quite simple. There's no longer a chemical signature left all over the place. There's no vocalizing of that particular individual. So you would have found if it was, let's say, Karula in this area, she was scent marking extensively, she was vocalizing, and as if she saw anybody or smelt anybody, she would actively pursue that and push them out. Now you don't have any of that situation, so it takes a few months. If you think of the case of Tundi, it took her about a month or two, and she started pushing and pushing and pushing more and more and more, and now we see Tundi very regularly on the dam cam around the dam. We're finding her tracks a lot in areas that she never used to come to. So it's just all about those chemical signatures, as well as then obviously the vocalizing that's no longer around, and that's how they work it out, that there's no longer a territory there. They listen and they look and they smell, and once they realize there's no sort of scent of another leopard, they then stick in that area. And that's why I'm sure Xongile is hanging around a lot here at Galago and just northwest of this. There's no leopard that's really actively scent marking in this area. We know that Tundi does come close to this, but she tends to be more east. She's not very, well, we haven't seen her yet anywhere to the west of Mvubu Road, or in fact Galago Camp is probably a more accurate description. So we haven't seen her to the west of that yet. It's not to say she hasn't, but so far we haven't seen any evidence of it, and that means that Xongile can then hide out in this section and use that sort of passage between Shadow and Tundi's territory at the moment as her own. So between Little Gari and all the way up to Buffelshoek boundary seems to be this linear area that Xongile is moving around in. But she certainly is very sleepy. Kristen, you're wondering if instinct is going to help with Xongile learning to scent mark? Well, most certainly there will be an instinct once she starts to come into this estrus cycle and she starts to feel like her body is ready to be mated with. That's going to instinctively push her to start marking, to set out an area that she can then have her cubs and keep them safe. So that's what happens. And if you've ever had a domestic cat and they're not spayed or anything like that, you'll find domestic cats do the exact same thing. As soon as they start coming into sexual maturity, they start marking everything. They pee everywhere to try and set themselves up so that when they are mating, that if they do produce cubs, that area is secure and safe for them. So it is just a complete instinct thing. While she has watched her mom and she's seen her mom do it a few times, it's more instinctual. The same with the male leopard. He gets to that point where he's now ready to mate. He feels like he's big and strong, and that will then start to cause for him to scent mark and to try and then secure a territory of his own. So it does happen quite a bit with them as well, and well, it happens with all of them. Like I say, it's an instinct-based thing. I'm just trying to see if there's not somewhere else we can maybe position that we can get a better view of not only Xongile but Hosana as well. I was thinking maybe we might go to the left of that little thicket and see if we can't look down, but there is another vehicle that is moving in behind us, and it might be tough to actually move around. So we'll just have to sit for a little bit and be patient. Hopefully everyone will rotate through and we'll be able to spend a bit of time with them. I would imagine the sighting is going to be a rather busy one because, well, not only is it one leopard, but it's two, and after the last sort of 48 hours of horrible weather where we've struggled a little bit with sightings, it's going to be quite a busy one for a lot of people here. You can see Xongile is completely not fazed by all of this though. Jackie, wanting to know when is the mating season? Well, Jackie, with the leopards there's no defined mating season. Female leopards will come into estrus at any point, and as soon as they come into estrus they'll start to scent mark, vocalize. Males will pick up that scent mark and know there's a chemical change within their urine and that these females are now in heat. The females will actively search out the males, or the males will find that urine and follow it and then mate with them. So any time of the year you can have leopard cubs and breeding happening. In fact, we know that Tundi and Tingana have been mating for the last little bit, and so they've been mating, and you'll find that we've had mating in the summer months. It just really doesn't matter with the leopard. As soon as she comes into estrus, they will produce. The reason why they don't have to worry so much, and it's different to a lot of the antelope species, is that leopards have food items all year round, so they're able to hunt and catch antelope and varying other food items from summer to winter to spring to fall, it doesn't really matter. Whereas the antelope species, they try and have their young that coincides with the rain season and the time of plenty, that they can provide not only nutritious milk for them when they're small, but also that the young ones can get nice nutrient-rich grasses in their formative years and be strong enough to evade predation. With the predators, it's not the same. They don't have to worry nearly as much, and so that's why they can give birth at any time of the year. But it is one very sleepy cat, in fact two very sleepy cats. I don't think Hosana has lifted his head once since we've been here. He seems to be flat, and I actually, to be honest, I'm not 100% sure it's even him. I think it's him, just given what the other guys have told me. Aubrey was parked on the other side and he said it's Hosana, so I think it's Hosana, but we could be talking about the wrong cat. Although just judging by the size, it seems to be a very sort of accurate size for Hosana. It's not quite as big as Tingana, and I suppose Tumba could be another one to throw into the mix, but I don't know. I will have to wait and see. I'm sure at some point we'll get a better view of these two and we'll be able to tell exactly who it is. But it looks like Hosana from here, just given the size of his body. And the fact that Xongile is so relaxed. Although we know she spent time around Tumba. They once had a kill in a tree and he was around, so it does happen from time to time that they bumped into each other. And it's such a strange case with Tandi, Tumba, Hosana and Xongile. Between them, they've all spent time together at random points, and it's a really interesting study, and I would have loved to have been able to follow these two young little royal cubs as they've moved around over the last few months, because I think they've been with a number of different leopards a lot more than what we actually realize. I reckon that these two have spent a lot of time around Tumba and Tandi, and potentially they've even bumped into Shadow and her cub, and it would be really interesting to know what the social interactions is all the time when they are with these other animals, and how that all plays out. I'm pretty sure Tandi is not too phased by either of them because they're both small and they're not posing any threat at this stage. They are the same size as what Tumba is, and so she's not too aggressive with them. And well, Tumba, he's just a youngster, so he's just exactly like these two. He's looking for play friends and kind of just seeing other leopards, and as long as they're not bigger than him and not being imposing to him, he doesn't really worry too much. You could see when he saw Tingana the other day, it's a little bit different. He sees that it's a much bigger individual and he knows that that's a threat, and that's why he trots off. With these two being of similar size, you probably find he's not nearly as intimidated by them. Of course, that will all change in life. Are you tired, my girl? Shame. It's a tough life being popular. I don't think there's too many that are more popular than this little one, and there certainly is got a huge fan base to be supporting her to become an adult and to survive through this next little phase. So as far as leopards go, she's got a lot of people in her corner hoping for the best for her. But she's looking fantastic, isn't she? She's full, she's fat, she's got good muscle structure, so she's looking as good as I've seen her since she left Kruger. And whatever they had, it was a decent meal, so whether it be a duiker or a small impala, or something like that, because even Hosana's got a slight bulge. I can see from here his belly's a little bit big, so it must have been a nice carcass that they've been on. And it's most definitely what we were tracking yesterday is these leopards, and I wouldn't be surprised they managed to grab something last night. Now we're going to carry on with our two sleepy cats, and while we do that, let's go across to Taylor McCurdy, who I believe has found herself at a rather large piece of water.
Just very quickly bypassed it. It was Bivelshoek Dam. There wasn't much in it except one very sleepy hippopotamus. We decided to carry on from him, and perhaps we'll visit Lake Chitwa, where there are many hippos that normally splash about. We've actually had a variety of different animals, but unfortunately, with it still being very windy, everything's laying quite low and is exceptionally skittish of the car. So they keep running away with us and ducking into thick bush, but that's not to be unexpected on a day like today, or like the days that we actually have had. And hopefully this is the end of this cold front now, because I'm now sick of the wind. I moved to the low veld and out of the Eastern Cape for the exact reason that I didn't like the wind, and it's now followed us here. Maybe Tristan brought it back with him when he visited the Eastern Cape. I think that's exactly what's happened. Along with the wind gremlins. Let's hope those wind gremlins have taken flight and gone elsewhere. So we're just on Pools Road at the moment. I'm just exploring really, because I haven't had an opportunity to come up to these areas since I've been back at work. Just having a look around, seeing what the vegetation looks like. It's quite dry, as you've seen. It's nice because it's thinning out. The animal pathways have now become exceptionally prominent, which is really good for us. I can see so much further into the bushes. I'm so surprised as to how over 2 weeks the sort of drastic changes happen. It's absolutely amazing. I'm not sure what else was on the property today. I did see some male lion tracks, and I did hear a male lion sort of roaring at maybe about 5 o'clock this morning. But I suspect it would have been one of the Birmingham boys on a territorial patrol. And you know what they're like. And he's probably crossed out, probably gone south, because his tracks came from the dam. So I think from here we'll probably go down Cheetah Cut Line, and then I think I'm going to sort of zig and zag from Mamba. Maybe check a bit of the Mulwati, the area that the elephants like. Check Leadwood and see if there isn't maybe a leopard hiding around that side. I didn't see a leopard track, so it's very difficult to try and figure out where Tundi's actually gone without any footprints, and with the little bit of information we have, it's virtually impossible. So we'll give that a skip for now. We know what she's like, as she can be like a ghost, and you can spend hours and hours and hours of sort of tracking time and come up nothing. You can ask Tristan about that. It's his favorite. Oh, now Francis from Israel, it's great to hear from you, wondering if I ever found my ostrich. Nope. Can you believe it, that the largest bird species in this area, well, in Africa, can you believe it, gave me the slip. I was so frustrated because they were seeing it just south of the traverse, and then they were seeing it north of us as well. They were just obviously using Djuma to sort of cross through and just leaving fresh tracks behind. Like Megan said, Megan thought that somebody was playing tricks on me and had maybe gone out and left tracks on purpose. Now at Gwari Pan, there's no water in it. It's been dry for quite some time. Yeah, we've got some birds. It was a daycare. There's a couple of little birds down here. I think there's an orange-breasted bush shrike hopping just in there somewhere at the bottom. Yeah, I just saw it move. If you go in there, it is to the left. Oh no, it's not a orange-breasted. It looks like a grey-headed bush shrike. Are you? Yes, you are. No, you're not. You are an orange-breasted. Very cool. It doesn't look particularly big. Let's see if we can get a clear view. They're quite sort of similar, but the grey-headed bush shrike has got a very robust bill. Where did you go? It's actually just flown up into those trees down. I think, yeah, it's not there anymore. If I'm not mistaken, it flew off. Let's see, where did it go? It went into, no, not quite there. A little bit. That's a different bird. We can have a look at that. That looks like a. Who have we got there? A chagra. Sorry, it's very difficult to see. There's a lot of glare on the screen, and the birds are not hanging around for long enough. There it is again. Brown crowned. Are you a brown crowned chagra? Looks like it from over here. Beautiful birds. They've got a beautiful call as well. I love this sort of rustish color that they have on their wings, with a sort of black stripe across their eye as well. Very sort of bold colors, but like you can see, they like to hang around in the bottom of the shrubs. That's their sort of foraging for food. That's typically what they do. I don't really see anybody else. But it was very difficult, of course. Sorry, I couldn't get I'll have a look. We'll get the bird app out in a bit. Let's see what else we can find. It's going to be a very quiet drive, I think. There's a couple of buffalo tracks around here. Maybe we're going to see some Duggar boys. It doesn't look like a big herd. It looks like 2 or 3 sets of tracks. Now, Aaron obviously was talking about Chitwa earlier, saying that if we go down to Chitwa, could we perhaps have a look for some fish eagles? Yeah, of course. I'm sure the pair will be there. If not both of them, at least one of them. They like to sit around there. So I'm definitely sure that's going to be on the cards. If we get there, who knows, maybe we find something so exciting we don't even have to leave Djuma today. But I'm not too sure about that. I think I'm in for a quiet drive. I think the birds are obviously calling me since we started off with the pearl-spotted owlet. Maybe that needs to be our focus this afternoon. Tristan can handle the cats, and anything else will be a nice sort of and a welcome surprise. Maybe I think that's what I'm going to do, is focus on birding in this wind. But we'll go back across to Tristan now, and I'm sure he's going to play the patience game, and hopefully it will sort of pay off sitting there watching Xongile and Hosana sleep.
Well, I hope so too, Taylor. Even if it is a patience game and they don't do too much this afternoon, it's still just extra special to be spending time with these two. It's not like we've seen that much of them recently, and it's so always nice to be in the company of the two of them, and the fact that they're together just makes it that much better. It's been a long time since these two have spent time with us in each other's company, so certainly enjoying the fact that we can sit with them. And little Xongile seems to be a little bit more restless than what Hosana is. She tends to move around quite a bit and lift her head at the gusts of wind and check around, whereas Hosana seems to be completely happy just to be lying where he is. Now, last night we had the most insane thing happen to us on the way home, and I forgot to tell everybody about this first thing, but I was leaving the hyena den yesterday at the end of drive, and you might notice that just here on my dashboard there's a funny thing. Now, normally Taylor and I are both quite OCD about cleaning our cars, but I left this on the car and didn't clean it because I wanted to show all of you. Now, what you might notice there is the perfect shape of wings and body and a tail that comes at the back. So last night on my way home, I was slowly puttering home. There's the wings there, and then the head in the front, and then the tail towards the back there. So I was slowly puttering home, and a nightjar decided that, well, in this cold breezy wind, that the engine bonnet must have been warm and landed perfectly on the bonnet. It then sat there as though it was going to just stay on my car, and I thought I'll be able to stop and we'll be able to show all of you with the nightjar resting on my bonnet, but unfortunately as I stopped the shutter of the engine, the nightjar then took off, and that's the nice little dust angel that it left. So I had a nightjar playing dust angels on my car last night, and it was probably one of the most bizarre things that I've ever seen happen to me. It was just so weird because we were driving along and down came this nightjar and just perfectly landed on the bonnet, sat there for a bit, and then off it went again. It was very weird but very cool, so I'll clean that off a little bit later. But it's not every day you're going to have a print of a nightjar on your bonnet, so certainly would confuse a number of our presenters if I left it. Sammy Jane, you say I hit a bird. No, I didn't hit a bird. Like I say, we were driving and the bird landed on the bonnet and sat on the bonnet and was relaxing on the bonnet as though it was a perch of a tree. It was in no way did I hit it or hurt it in any way. It then flew off once I turned the engine and it moved off. It literally just landed as though it was a branch. It was a perfect landing. It was nice and soft, and then it sat down and it was just looking at me as though I had, you know, what am I looking at? This is the perfect place to be. And I would imagine it must have been nice and warm, and in that cold wind, it must have been perfect. Donna, you say a hitchhiker. Well, most definitely a hitchhiker. It hitchhiked on my bonnet and certainly made its presence known. Now, I'm just going to try and see if I can't reposition so that we can see Hosana, because where we are now, we haven't really got a nice view of our little prince. So I'm going to try and reposition myself a little bit. So let's see if we go back here. Let's try and see. I'm gonna try and just reverse back here. It's a long way around that we're gonna go because of the nature of where we are. This should be perfect to turn. So it is a very dense, very thick area, and it makes life a little bit tough. So hopefully if they do get moving, they decide to move in a more friendly section, because if they go north from here, we're going to have a bit of a problem. But for now, I don't think they're going to go too far. I'd imagine their first port of call after today, or after the afternoon, is going to be to drink and then move around. So let's just try and quickly just get around this side. And I'm hoping from here we'll get a little view down the drainage of our little prince. So if you have a look straight through there, Seb, is that okay? There we go. There's our little boy. He's just sitting under the tree and in the ditch and out of the wind. There we go. Now he looks like you can see there, a lot larger than what Xongile is at the moment, so he's certainly looking a lot bigger. Now hopefully at some point he'll put up his head and we can confirm it's him, but I'm pretty sure a lot of us have all kinds of spots that we use, and there must be a spot on his shoulder that we can use to identify and make 100% sure that it is Hosana. But very sleepy. Xongile definitely got the lion's share of that meal for sure. Oh, is he going to stretch and turn? Come turn. No, he didn't turn. He just went back to sleep again. But either way, like I say, Xongile got more of this meal than anybody else because his belly is not quite as large. It's still full, but not nearly as large as what Xongile's is. So I'd imagine, my mind, it must have been something like a deka or something like that. That's what I would imagine they fed on. That is one very sleepy cat. Exquisite Bliss, you're wondering if they'll always have bonds as siblings. Well, Exquisite Bliss, no, not really. So you'll find that as soon as they become older and they become sexually mature, then you'll find that Hosana will try and mate with Xongile. Even though it's his sister, he will... The instinct to mate far outweighs that bond that they had, and remember that they'll probably be apart for quite some time before he would be able to mate with her anyway, so it can happen that he ends up mating with his sister. It's not something that is unheard of, but certainly they won't have this bond like they do now where they're very tolerant of one another. You'll find that she'll become a lot more irritable with his presence other than when she's in heat. If she's in heat, obviously she'll be quite happy that he's around. If she's not in heat, then she's going to be pretty sort of irritable with the male being around. She'll probably try and depart the scene as quick as possible, unless obviously there's a carcass and she sits around and waits for food to come. But other than that, she's going to probably be fairly intolerant of him as she gets older, and the same with him. He's not going to really want this female following him around as he becomes a territorial male, and the chances of him staying anywhere near where Xongile is, like I said earlier, very slim, given the number of males that we have in this particular area. It seems as though we almost have more males than females at the moment, which is not as ideal as we would like. I'm just trying to see Seb. I think we might have a better gap if I... no, there's a big stump there. I thought we would have a gap to be able to move slightly where we could have actually seen both of them, but there's a massive stump and a ditch, so we're not going to be able to go that way, I don't think. And so let's go quickly across to Taylor with her feathered friend while I ponder my next move.
Have you got it, Senzo? Where? Oh, behind us. Sorry, I'm just trying to reposition and get a good spot for Senzo. We've got a black-collared Barbet. We're just in a very awkward spot. There's a pair of them. They're one of my favorite birds. They're very pretty, but it's very awkward. There we go. They're beautiful birds with bright red and black heads, and to some extent a bit of yellow on their wings too. And they be, look at that. Now they like to hang around in this area. We're actually on Impala Road South at the moment, and I'm sure most of you could guess why. With the size of that bill, you can see that they like to eat fruit, and we know that the jackalberries are full of fruit at the moment, so it's only necessary that they hang around here. I'm hoping to find my friend the southern bobo that also jumps about in this area, but this bird will do. And what would really be the cherry on top this afternoon is that if one of them or both of them could do a duet and sing their beautiful song for us, although I don't know if you could sing and hold on to a branch at the same time. That would be serious multitasking. But definitely the birds are on our side today. So if this is a new one for you, I know there are a lot of you that have started making bird lists. Let us know, hashtag Safari Live, of course, with what number this beautiful bird is on your list. If only it would just hop out into the open, so you could all get some very nice clear screenshots. And off it goes. They're just flying around here. Again, it's a nice spot. You know, when you sit on top of the tree like they were, it's very windy. But if you hang down in the lower branches and sort of behave like a scrub robin, or even to some extent a orange-breasted bush owl, both species of bush shrikes that we see on a regular basis, and also the chugras. They've got a good idea today by sticking in the lower vegetation. We'll see what other birds we can find. This is my favorite road to bird on, of course. There's normally lots and lots of interesting things around here. So as we drive, I'm going to stare up into the trees and hopefully we'll spot some other feathered friends. I'd like to see some waxbills today, some blue waxbills. It would be quite nice. Also very pretty birds to have a look at. What else would I like to see bird-wise? Maybe some coqui francolins. Maybe towards the end of drive doing their beautiful call. That would be very nice actually. And then of course fish eagles for Aaron. So I think we'll definitely take a drive over to Chitwa. Maybe we'll see those cutthroat finch again. That's always quite nice. And we'll have a look at what else we've got down there. I think that might actually be a good idea. Hopefully there won't be any guests down in the eastern corner. That would be nice. Now Sammy Jane, you're wondering if we can check on the vulture's nest? Yeah, if we get down that way we can definitely pop past, but at the moment it's not really on my route. But we can, yeah, we'll see if we get to that. Let's try and focus on heading towards Chitwa, because the sun's and it's a bit cloudy today, so I think we're going to lose light fairly quickly. We might have to get to Chitwa a little bit earlier than what we normally do. Otherwise it's not that too great down there. And I'm also just checking very carefully around here to see if I can see any cats slinking in and out of the drainage lines. There's no tracks. I have yet to see. I think I saw Tingana's footprints the other morning, but other than that I've really only just seen lion tracks around. I haven't really had a good look at any leopard tracks. And maybe our luck will change with the spotted cats at some point, although I wouldn't mind stumbling across the Nguma pride. That would actually be quite nice. Alright, but we're going to see what else is out and about here and see if we can get any more birds. But I'm going to send you back across to Tristan. It seems as though he's been doing a bit of investigating. Let's go and find out if he's made a conclusion.
Well, I definitely think it's him. He's there, and I see Xongile is now actually up and moving. So I'm going to try and see if we can't follow her. I wonder if she's not going to go for water. She's just moving in the background there, so we're going to try and get back. Seb, watch your head when we go back. Now, the Hosana just lifted his head, so I can tell you with 100% certainty it is him. He just gave me a brief look as I was reversing back, so he's gone back down again now, but I can tell you, like I say, with 100% certainty that it is Hosana, given that he's just looked up very quickly and he's got that telltale little pink nose and he doesn't look like Tamba at all, so that's how we can tell. Now there's Xongile there. I just want to see where she goes from here. She's just straight through. There she is. What are you doing? You're rubbing yourself all over grass. See, she's sniffing around there. I wonder if there wasn't something that was in that area. Oh, have you decided that's where you want to lie instead? Okay, there's Hosana's now gotten up as well. I wonder if he's not going to move towards where she is. Sorry, Seb. I know we're moving you from pillar to post at the moment, but there's our little prince. He's now resting right there. And we can see straight away that it's him once his head is up and he looks around. There we go. Oh, and he's looking good as well. He's looking as good as I've seen him look since he's left Mom. Are you going to get up for us as well? Oh, big stretch. There we go. Now he's going towards where Xongile is. Look how he's stalking towards her. I wonder if they're going to have a little bit of a playing session now. See, look at his focus. Look how he's watching. Still a bit of youthful exuberance in amongst these two. There he goes, around the bush. Lying flat. You're being naughty, little one. These two are awesome together. I forgot how much I miss seeing the two of them as as youngsters playing around and moving around together. Certainly going to try and see if I can't just squeeze Rusty through here. Now Rusty, you need to just make yourself look skinny. Deep breath, Rusty. Okay, just careful. Seb on both sides, sharp thorns. Ow. been impaled by a knobthorn this week as well. Now let's make sure that my earpiece cable is not going to get ripped. So let's get rid of that quickly. So we're just stuck on a few thorns at the moment, so I'm just trying to get myself undone at this stage. We're almost done there. We're good? Okay. Now Rusty doesn't want to move over the branch. Come on, Rusty. So I believe that's on. Okay, we should be able to get through. There we go. Sorry, Seb. We managed to just squeeze through, so now that we're through on this side, we'll be able to see the two of them. There we go. Okay, there we go. So we're through now. Now you can just see Hosana stopped. I thought he was going to come out a little bit more, but he stayed where he is. There's Xongile, and Hosana's just on the left-hand side. There we go. Hopefully they are going to move together. So there's Hosana just behind the tree at the moment. Come lie with your sister. We want to see the two of you together. You can see though, as soon as she moved, he moved as well. So that's the situation, is typical with males. Often when the females move, the males will follow. Even as they get older in life, it will be the same situation. If they're together, you'll find that as soon as a female makes a move, a male decides to follow with them. Now I can hear some squirrels alarm calling in the distance. I wonder if it's not beyond the realms of possibility. And both of them have been looking in that area at those squirrels. I wonder if we won't see another leopard arrive here. It would be intriguing to see where Tundi went this morning. I know she was left going north of the dam, and so it's possible she could also be in this general vicinity, and with the sort of movement of everybody through the bushes and the trees, that might cause her to come and investigate what's going on. You can see they're very alert as to what's going on. Hosana's also looking around a little bit, and like I say, I'm just hoping he comes out a little further than where he is now, and we'll get a much better view of him. Look how she's watching. So she's listening to those squirrels that are alarm calling as well. Deadhead Tom, you're wondering if I get the feeling that Xongile and Hosana don't like to be alone. I think so. I think they're young individuals, and they, they don't, I don't know if they know what's happened to their mother. Their mother's just obviously disappeared, and so for them, it's a situation where they might crave the sort of companionship of an older leopard, and that's why we keep seeing them with so many different older leopards. We've seen them, like I say, with Tundi, and even with Tumba to a degree. He's not older, but it's another leopard. So it might be that. They also seem to spend a lot of time around each other. I've heard on Little Gowrie that they seem to be, the tracks go there a lot, and so I would imagine they spend time together. So yeah, I think they're still not completely territorially dominant, and so that means that they still crave each other's company. They're still young at the end of the day, and neither of them are even, they're a year and a half old at this stage, which means that time is still on their side, and they still kind of have that youthful exuberance. What are you doing, Xongile? Almost like burrowing herself into the ground there. There's obviously something that she likes that she's rolling on. You often find this when there's something like a piece of dead skin or a carcass or a skull. They sometimes do this, so there might be something there that she smelt that she likes to roll in. Could be a bit of dung as well. You sometimes find they'll do that in buffalo dung or elephant dung, mostly buffalo more than anything else, but they do sometimes do it on other animals as well. Cat, you're wondering if it's normal to lose so many leopards lately? Well, Cat, a number of the leopards... Okay, so we know Kruger just vanished. We don't have any idea what happened to her. It could have been predation. It could be anything. We have just no idea at all. She just disappeared during a time when it was quite wet, and so her tracks could have gone somewhere. She could have theoretically been preyed upon by another predator, and that could have caused her to go. But to me, we don't know. He was unfortunately died on an area where they decided not to do an autopsy, as far as I know, so we don't have any idea of what happened to him. But the rest of the leopards that have been dying in Londolozi and Mala Mala, most of them have succumbed to lions. So it's a high number of lions after a drought year. More lions means the prides are bigger, stronger, and therefore they're getting hold of some of the leopards. It's often the case when lion numbers increase that the numbers of other cats like leopard, cheetah, even wild dogs will start to decline a little bit as the lion numbers get more. So a number of those deaths have been that, and with Salahesh we just don't know. Salahesh, we will get an answer at some point. It just depends on what the tests are and what the lab results are and varying other things like that. So we will find out, and we'll be able to work out what's going on. So also just remember that a lot of, besides Vatumi, most of the leopards that have unfortunately died in the Sabi Sands over the last period have all been older leopards. So they might not be ancient and they might not be right at the end of their life, but they all are on the older side of the spectrum. So, you know, Karula, Salahesh, both 12 years old. You had Kekalezi female, I think she was close to the same age, 13, somewhere there, maybe even older. So airstrip male, these are all males that are, or leopards that are on the older spectrum of life. And so there's things that do happen. It's just a phase that is unfortunately happening, and it seems as though they're all packed very close together, but it is how sometimes it happens. You just do get these runs where older individuals do end up dying. So it's not an ideal situation, but it's certainly, I don't think there's anything sinister afoot, and it's not like our leopards, a lot of them have just died from mysterious causes. There's obviously just the mystery surrounding Karula because she disappeared and we don't know what happened to her. But to me, for what we know was something to do with the natural death. We're not sure, but he wasn't autopsied, and Salahesh will get an answer as to what happened to her. So at the end of the day, it's not anything untoward happening. They most certainly, none of them have been poached, none of them have been shot at or anything like that, and there's been no sign of poisoning of waterholes or carcasses, as some people have been speculating, because like I say, if that was the case, you would find a number of other animals that would also be dead. If it was carcasses and things, you would find birds of prey, you would find scavengers like hyenas, you would also find, if it was waterholes, a number of different animals that might be dying. So it's not really a sort of conspiracy theory or anything in it. It's just that it's just a phase, unfortunately, where we've had a multiple number at once, and it sometimes happens with the lions. When you get a male takeover, you get a number of different lions that pass away, or you get years of wet weather where the lions don't do as well, their cubs are not as successful, or there's a number of factors that are involved. But it certainly is not ideal, that's for sure, but it's not something that we need to sort of theorize about just yet until we know the facts. We can't really jump to conclusions as to what's actually happened. Aaron, you want to know how often leopards die from choking on something they're eating? Aaron, I honestly have no idea. I've never heard of a leopard dying from choking. I would imagine that they can regurgitate and try and cough it out, but maybe it's happened, but I certainly have never heard of it, and certainly haven't, in my experience, heard of any animal inside the Sabi Sands area choking from something that it's eaten. So I don't know, to be honest. I suppose it is possible, but I would be very surprised if it has happened. At the end of the day, we also, you know, leopards, there is mortality in them, and sometimes we get very attached to these animals, and it's a natural system, and things happen. In the case of Salahesh and even Karula, they might have had, according to the books, a few years left in them, but they also might have had an underlying condition. There could be a situation where they had some sort of a fall out of a tree that caused a bit of an internal injury that nobody can see from the outside, and that's what's caused it. Or there could be snake bites, there's so many different factors out here, and it's like I say, when the older they get, the more susceptible they are to, and more prone they are to falling prey or falling foul of some sort of injury or something like that. So we'll just have to wait and see, like I say, with Salahesh, what happened to her, and then go from there. But I think unfortunately with Karula, we're never really going to know what the story was. It's now the time that is framed, that is past, would indicate that if she's was preyed upon, the chances of us finding any parts of her is going to be so difficult. I read somewhere the other day where somebody asked why we haven't found a skull. Well, it's quite simply because if I had to go and place a skull in one of these grassy thickets and ask you to find it, I can guarantee that it would be almost impossible to find a skull inside here unless you stumble upon it now at this time of the year where it's dry, when you can see things a little bit better. And even then we're finding things all over the bush that are been there for years, and all of a sudden we find it. So it's like a needle in a haystack. It's like finding an Easter egg in 1,000 hectares that's hidden under a piece of grass that's been dragged around and moved around. So these things do happen. Sometimes you don't find the remains of animals, and it is one of those things, unfortunately. But we'll never really know what happened to her, and then in terms of Saleh, like I say, we will get an answer on it and we can go from there. It's certainly not an ideal situation, that's for sure, and one that is never easy to deal with from everyone's perspective. We as guides spend a lot of time around these animals, and it's not pleasant when these things happen, but certainly, like I say, they don't think there's anything sinister afoot at the moment, and we know the cause of death of a number of the individuals that have died over the last few months, which most of them has been predation by other predators, which is part of the system. We are in a predator-rich environment like the Sabi Sands, a number of different predators that are here, and that means that you will get situations where there's interaction and unfortunately fatalities. Seems as though little Xongile is still very alert. Hosana's gone back to sleep. He's not interested, and so until Xongile decides to move, I don't think Hosana is going to be too active. You can see just a white paw behind the bushes over there. So he's still very sleepy. We're going to try and just reposition ourselves slightly because there's another car that's here that they want to try and get a view, so I'm going to just move back a little bit for them so that they can see. Seb, just tell me when you can still see. Good. Cool. I just want to give a little bit of room for these guys to be able to see, so there we go. We can still see now, and we might not be able to see Hosana so well, but at least they'll be able to position themselves that they can at least get a view, because it's quite a difficult area, lots of big trees, and a lot of the trees that we're driving in between here are protected species. They're species of trees that you don't want to drive over, and so the guys are having a little bit of a tougher time getting through. Also, most of the others drive much bigger cars than we do, so it makes life a lot harder in that regard, and they really kind of struggle to get their cruisers through these thickets. So where we can help them, we will try. We certainly fit in spaces that they can't. There we go. But isn't she beautiful? Look at those eyes. She's got such beautiful colored eyes. They're honey colored. Charlie, you say that Xongile has always been the most alert one of the two. Well, I suppose that is true. I honestly didn't spend enough time with them when they were together with Mom. It's probably one of the saddest parts of when I joined Safari Live, is that it kind of all changed as I got here. I would have loved to have spent time with the two of them, with Kruger, and just seen these little nuances that they had between the two of them. And I suppose her being smaller and being a little sort of petite, she's got to be a little more careful about what goes on. So she probably has learned from her mom that being aware of the situation and watching what's going on is always an important part of surviving. So if she keeps that up and she keeps being alert, it's going to be good for her. Annabella, who's a new viewer, welcome Annabella to Safari Live. You want to know that their gender influences their lifespan. Well, Annabella, to a degree, yes. You'll find that females, because of the way things go, don't necessarily fight and go after each other as much as what you would see from males. Males tend to be very defensive of territories, and there's constantly new males that are pushing in and younger males trying to overthrow older males, and there tends to be a lot more fighting amongst them, which means that they're left with scars and bruises and get battered as their life goes on, whereas the females tend to be far more sort of patient and move around and try and avoid conflict a lot more, because generally they have cubs or are trying to produce cubs, and the risk of getting killed is far outweighs that of, trying to tackle someone. They'd rather have cubs and stay safe. So you'll find a situation where females generally live sort of between 14 and 16 years. That would be a average lifespan, and that's why Kruger and Salehesh's a bit of a shock to a lot of people is because they're still a little bit short of that, whereas the males generally between sort of 12 and 14 is when they live too. So it's obviously an average, and there's different circumstances for all leopards, but that's the kind of average lifespans for here in the Sabi Sands. And that's given that they become territorial animals. There's a lot of fatalities in the youthful years, so anything under a year old we tend to find quite a high mortality rate. Once they get over a year, it starts to get less and less, and then they start to live these average lifespans until they get a little bit older. Right, well, Xongile is taking it very easy, Hosana is still taking it easy, and I'm sure Taylor McCurdy has been around and about, and well, let's go jump on and see what she's been up to.
I've been trying to find all sorts of cool birds for you, but they seem to be not wanting to be seen now as well. And I was also looking for some elephants. I've been in the Mulwati, and I can see lots of elephant tracks, but they're going that way, which is not good for us because that way is south, and we're just at Twin Dams as well. Doesn't look like there's anything at the watering hole. There are one or two turtle doves, but they just flew away. I think what we shall do is have a look at these two birds. Don't fly now. Now. Where are you running to? There's a variety of birds here. There are starlings, there are hornbills. Well, there was a starling. It's just running out of frame. There it is. A Birchall starling. Hello. Running through the grass looking for something to eat. But you haven't found anything, have you? It's going to be more and more difficult now. There isn't a lot of grass left. Well, not where this starling is searching for grasshoppers or butterflies or anything along those lines. That's probably going to have a tough time. I'm going to have to start flushing the insects out from the trees. Even the termites and the ants aren't particularly active, but starling, if you want a word of advice as to where to go, if you want to find some tasty treats, Megan's room at the DRC. Lots of ants. You'd probably be doing her a favor if you went over there and helped her get rid of them, and at least they wouldn't be going to waste then. Looks like it has found some sort of small little insect moving around on the ground though, and that's what they spend most of their day doing. These diurnal birds is down on the ground, or depending on their sort of foraging techniques, in trees. There's a feather of some sort there too, or on the ground, flushing all sorts of things out, or following animals around. That's all. There we go, got something. Like maybe a little grasshopper. Very busy in all of that long grass. And I think what we will do is we shall go towards Treehouse Dam. And I forgot to tell you as well, it was not quite funny, I don't know why I was going to say quite funny, but in the evening when we went to go and take down the camera that we put up at Treehouse Dam, I saw that all 3 blacksmith lapwing chicks were still around. So that's exciting. We only got to see one yesterday afternoon though. The others must have been hiding. So we'll go back there and we'll have a look at those funny looking, no, they're not really chicks anymore. They've grown so quickly. They're half the size of the adults now. Any other interesting birds here? It would have been nice to have seen that snipe. That painted snipe that had been hanging around, but I think that sort of marsh area just south of Twin Dams itself has unfortunately dried up. There isn't really much water left in there at all. Now, Rocky, wondering if there are any robins around yet? There are lots of robins around. They're normally in the area. Oh my goodness, Kudu, why'd you give me a fright? You stood out behind the Balanites tree at the last second, didn't you? Let me get a view of the kudu. So, Rocky, there are robins around. We normally see the white-browed scrub robin, but we should start to see bearded and a few others soon too. We're always looking for the white-throated robin, which is Brent's particular favorite bird. Well, I actually don't know if he even is so fond of it. I just remember when I first started working here, that's all he was speaking about was the white-throated robin all the time. And I don't know if he ever got it or if he just had it calling. I'm not quite sure. So there's lots of different sort of robins around. And we'll see. Normally first thing in the morning is a good time to see the white-browed scrub robin. They're always singing their beautiful tunes. But of course we're not looking at a white-browed scrub robin, even though it does have a white eyebrow. This is a kudu, a young kudu bull. I'm just picking at all the lovely new leaves. There's a little family group here. I don't think it's a family group. Sorry, I can just see horns all over the show. So it's just the bulls, a bachelor herd. There's a slightly larger male at the back. You can just sort of see some movement from his horns and his ears flickering. And they're quite relaxed. I thought, seeing as though we were quite close to this other fella, this younger one, he was going to bolt off and then send the others running, but that doesn't seem to be the case. Perhaps they think we're not worth it when it comes to exhausting energy. Good choice. Definitely a good idea. Very delicate today. Just eating very nicely. Oh, there we go. Crunching down a little bit further, getting a bit more of the stem. So there you go. It just shows you they don't just pick the nice succulent leaves off. Sometimes they'll munch on the stems too. Ooh. Tristan and I were hoping, and I think we were a bit premature about saying that the wind seemed to have died down. That's definitely not the case now this afternoon. If anything, it's starting to pick up with gusts, and it's actually quite chilly. And off those kudu bulls go into the thicket, where they'll keep out of this nasty wind. Maybe they're going to go towards Treehouse Dam. That's sort of the direction that they're walking in. Perhaps have a drink of water a little bit later. But let's go in a similar direction. Now the wind is really starting to blow. Although I think I've just been really good in terms of driving around and driving in the thicker sort of vegetation, avoiding all the open areas. But now we're getting to a sort of open spot. And we can definitely feel it. No elephant tracks here either. None that have crossed, at least around here today, so I suspect that those others maybe went a little bit further south into Little Gowrie, maybe towards Chitwa. So we are going to go there. We'll check Treehouse Dam, and then we're going to come back, go along Gowrie Main, and then start heading towards Chitwa. Like I said, the clouds are coming over again. At one point the sky was beautiful and completely clear. There was not a cloud in the sky. After yesterday we were showing you how that wall of clouds was just sort of coming in from the distance. It was quite pretty. And there's some Ellie tracks here. Right. Actually, like I said, a couple of elephant tracks, but I think maybe from this morning, all crossing that way. So they've come from this side. But there are quite a few different herds of elephants around at the moment, so we might bump into some. Even if we find an elephant bull, that would be quite nice. Okay, we go through here, see if Janet Jackson is here. No. She's not in her hole. She's definitely moved. Now, Vicky B, you're wondering how many protected trees there are over here. Well, I'm actually not sure. Leadwood would definitely be one. There's the odd milkberry around here. They're not very common in this area. Not milkberry, milkwood, sorry. Milkwoods are also protected. I'm trying to think what else. Zebra woods, I'm not sure I think zebra woods could be protected too. There's definitely lots of trees that we're not allowed to drive over, so we have given a long list of types of vegetation that we need to be able to identify, and there's certain plants and trees and things we're not allowed to drive over when we do off-road, so we've got to be careful of them. But like I said, I'm not 100% certain. Definitely the milkwoods, the leadwoods, and I think the zebra woods too. I'm not sure if a balanites is a protected tree. They're fairly common. It's down there. I saw some dark spots, but I don't actually know what animals they could be. Maybe they could be elephants, but they're very far away. It's very hard to tell. We'll go and investigate down that way a little bit later. Yeah, exactly. Sensor's making me laugh. Right, we're not far away from Treehouse Dam though. So we'll get there in a little bit. Now, Karen, you're actually wondering if the elephants would be around with the wind. Not necessarily out in the open. They're probably going to avoid the open areas like we're going to try and do today as well. I think they would be... I'm surprised we didn't find any in the Mulwati. But maybe they've already been browsing through this area and they have gone just sort of continued following the drainage line and then just gone south. See, there's more elephant tracks again. They're just going back down this way. Wonder if it wasn't the same herd, that sort of tracks I've sort of seen going all the way around here. Hard to tell though. Lots of small family groups at the moment. I'm thinking Chitwa's going to be a good bet. If they're all going south, there's nice water down there. Also lots of drainage systems, so good opportunities for them to feed out of the wind, or maybe we're going to bump into some in the next couple of minutes. So I'm going to keep scanning through these sort of thicketed areas, because again, they don't necessarily have to be in a drainage line. As long as it's a spot where there's quite a few tall trees growing that will provide some shelter, they'll be happy to feed in and amongst that too. Right, but we'll have a look. So yeah, I thought we were going to be, it was hot. I even wore shorts today, thinking, oh, it's warmed up so nicely, and now again the weather has just completely changed. I suppose August is almost over though, and this wind should hopefully go relatively soon in the next couple of weeks. Yeah, they were definitely busy around here this morning, the elephants. Just probably missed them. Ooh, lots of ripples on Treehouse Dam on the water. Let's have a quick look. Let's see. Again. Hello, Blacksmith Lapwing. Where are your babies? Oh, now there's a glare. Hang on, we're going to have to change position because there's a huge glare. It makes it very difficult to see. I can't see any of the chicks right now. When they keep going. Maybe even those little ones don't want to be out in the open today on the edge of the water. Perhaps they've also been told by the adults, you know, move off a little bit further away. Let's just poke our nose down here. And just see one adult. Maybe they're along. Wait, sorry, it's a bit bumpy. So there's one of the adults that I was telling you about. You can even hear it making a bit of a noise. I can't see any of the youngsters. Maybe they are just sitting in the long grass. They're also quite vulnerable to this cold weather, and it has been quite an abrupt change too, from, you know, exceptionally warm to this chillier weather at such a young age. They are vulnerable to the cold, so they might just be sitting off in the long grass, perhaps just relaxing, conserving their energy. Although I do hear another adult that sounds a little bit further west of this one. We can't see it in the long grass. Maybe this is the distraction out here, trying to lure anything that's potentially looking to eat their young away. Very quiet, not even a three-banded plover, and no wax bills, no little buntings. But this isn't a very sheltered dam though, so I don't blame them for being elsewhere. But we're going to start making our way towards Chitwa now, and it seems as though Tristan has got a lovely view of the beautiful Princess Xongile.
We do have a lovely view of her. She's being so much more obliging than her brother is at the moment. Her brother's sitting behind the thicket still and hasn't come out. She, of course, is lying nicely out in the open. But interestingly, we've got bushbuck alarming just to the south of us. And I wonder, like I said just now, we had squirrels alarm calling, now bushbuck alarm calling. If there isn't another leopard that's lurking here, wouldn't it be quite something if we didn't have just these two, but we had the other two arrive in the form of Tundi and Tumba as well? That would certainly make for quite some sighting. But look at her, she's a very pretty cat. She's so serious for her age. She always has this very serious look about her. What are you watching? I can hear now Franklin's also alarm calling behind us. Look, you can see she's now looking in the direction of the Franklins as well. I wonder what's going on. Maybe, just maybe, we might see another leopard arrive. It wouldn't be for the first time this week that we've had a unexpected intruder get into this area. We had that sighting with Tumba and Tingana, so you never know. And if there's been a sign of a carcass, there might be a bit of a smell around or something like that, and then potentially she's picked it up, or one of them have picked it up and come and looked. We also can't write off Tingana. He moves around quite a bit, so he could also be in this vicinity. But certainly there's somebody else causing a disturbance, and it's not these two. The sound of the bushbuck alarm calling and the Franklins is quite far from where we are. It's south of us towards the camp itself, so it's definitely a different animal making a disturbance there. but she is so beautiful. She's looking more and more regal as the days are going. Mary, you say looks so much like her mom. It's incredible actually how much she does look like her mom. And as the days go by, it seems as though she just gets more and more similar. As she's bulking out a little bit, she's starting to get in that same look about her. It really is quite eerie, the resemblance. It's amazing sometimes when you can see a resemblance of cats between mom and its daughter. It really is an incredible thing. So super glad that she does look like Karula, because it will just be a good reminder for all of us as time goes on that she is still around. And like I say, I really hope that she's going to be the dominant female in this northern parts of Djuma. It will be amazing if we have her for many years to come and she becomes that individual that spends all her time here. So Patricia, you say that James Henry calls Xongile the Cindy Crawford of leopards because of her little spot that looks like the mole of Cindy Crawford. So that's why she's gotten that nickname from James. Well, James, I think that's a very accurate description, and I'm sure James and Brent and Jamie will be so happy to see the two of them. I know that they really miss these two cubs, and I'm sure they'll be glad to get an update on them. And just also need to send a big sort of shout out to our Mara team on a job well done this morning. They did their TV show and it sounded like it was an amazing show, and they did super well. So well done all of you guys up there. They've made us all proud, and they certainly have carried the banner of Safari Live incredibly well over the last few weeks, as they've shown the absolute epicness that is the Masai Mara. So very well done, guys. And I hope some of them are watching back in Kenya. I don't know if they are. They probably are all enjoying some apple juices in the sun, I would imagine. Yep, she's up again. She's far more restless. She's a lot like Tumba in that she moves around a lot. Look, now she's smelling. I'm just going to take this opportunity to just move a little bit and to reposition ourselves so that we can maybe try and see Hosana as well. Because Hosana is just off to the left, and if I can creep in here, then we might be able to see not only her, but the little brother as well. Or bigger brother, should we say. He's of course fast asleep at the moment. He's not really too fazed by what's going on. There we go. So there she is, sitting. What's wrong, girl? And there's Hosana. Is she going to go lie with him? This will be so cool if the two of them go rub up against one another. There we go, look. Come on. There we go. Look at that, guys. There's the two of them together. Lots of rubbing up. How's that for a sweet moment? That is extra special. Let's just move a little bit here. Sorry, Seb, I'm going to just move forward. Also, there's somebody else that's coming into the sighting, so if we can just move slightly forward, then we can get ourselves in a position that they can also join and see what's going on. But look at that, guys. Isn't that cool? We've got the two of them face to face, well, head behind head, as they were many moons ago. I'm sure there's a lot of pictures of those two as little cubs exactly like that. How cool is this? Absolutely epic. Now, one leopard is special, two leopards is even better, but the two royal cubs is the best way to spend a cat a day. So hopefully you're all enjoying it as much as what we are, because it is seriously special to have the two of them sitting like this. These times that we're going to share like this are going to get less and less as time goes on, and so it really is amazing. Brenda, you say happiness, and well, Brenda, your word happiness is, I think, the perfect time to do a one-word tweet as to what this makes you guys feel. The two leopards, two royal cubs back together again for the first time for a long time that we've seen. So one-word tweet, how does this sighting make you feel? Hashtag Safari Live on Twitter. Just want to try and look at that. Hosana, you're looking beautiful, my boy. Still not a mark on the face. Now, I know a lot of you at one stage said that Hosana was attacked by Tingana. Well, there certainly was no evidence of Tingana being in any way making contact with Hosana. There's not a single scar on that face anywhere, and when leopards fight, they generally will fight facing one another so that they can protect themselves, and if there's no scars on him, I doubt Tingana ever made contact with Hosana. I think it was more a case that he was just vocal towards Hosana and asserted himself as the dominant male, so certainly no issue, I don't think. Oh, look at that on his back. Guys, how cool is this? The serious daughter and, well, serious sister and the playful brother at this stage. Hosana, what are you doing? Now, it'll be... At one point there, his tongue was hanging out a little bit, and I was wondering if we would have a little tongue-out cat. Laura, you say legacy? Well, most certainly is a very good legacy that we've got here of the two of them. And like I say, to see the two together and lying like this and rubbing up on one another and being in each other's company is an incredible experience, and one that's, like I say, the days are numbered that we're going to see these two. So it certainly is a legacy, and these will be screenshots that all of you, I hope, will be taking, and to remember these two very fondly as individuals that spent a lot of time together. Oh. Ladybugs and daisies, you say warm and fuzzy. So warm and fuzzy, one word, no spaces. That's okay. We either like that too. It certainly makes the heart feel warm and fuzzy when you see these two together like this. You can see they're just watching the coming and goings of the vehicles, the varying vehicles that are around. There's quite a number of them at the moment, so I think, like I say, it's a popular sighting with given everybody that wants to come and see these two. They certainly are legends already at this young age within this particular section. Look at how she listens and picks up everything around her. Linda, you say nostalgic? Well, I think that's probably one of the better ones, given that it's something we haven't seen in so long, and it's definitely a reminder of times where we were fortunate and that we had them most days and saw so much of their lives when they were younger. So it definitely does bring up a lot of memories. I'm sure a lot of you have really good memories of these two lying just like this with one another. It's just much bigger versions of themselves now. They certainly are a lot larger than when I last saw Hosana. He's grown a little bit already, and Xongile is filling out day by day. The more I see her, the bigger she looks, which is fantastic. Now, I wonder if Taylor has managed to get herself to Chitwa Dam and is there sitting and seeing what's happening. But let's go across and see what she's been doing and what her adventures have been like this afternoon.
Not too great, unfortunately, Tristan. No, we're not anywhere near Chitwa Dam yet. We've still got a way to go. We're on Gari Main. I did, however, see where those male lion tracks went to that we had earlier around Vuyatela Dam. They crossed out on Shpamu Road and went southwest into Little Gari. So we know that there's one Birmingham down that end. I don't know where the other Birmingham boys are. I think there is definitely one of them with the Styx Pride on that Buffalo Kill on the boundary of Cheetah Plains and Annette's down very far south. So we know where one, I don't know which Birmingham it is, unfortunately. But I popped onto the Eastern Channel and I'm just having a little listen. Doesn't really sound like there's much going on other than that sighting of the Styx. But we'll see. You never know what might pop up. Oh my gosh, now it's the radios. My ears are not accustomed to all the noise that comes with the radio chatter, so I have to turn it down. But hopefully if somebody does spot anything, they'll pop us a message, or I'll have the radio turned up again. But this is what it's going to be like, unfortunately, on these very, very windy days. Maybe we're going to have to play Spot the Francolin. or Spur Fowl. How does that sound? There's two of them over here at the moment, making a huge racket. What are you shouting about? That wasn't the one making the noise, but it was coming close towards us. They're actually very pretty birds. I like their sort of striking coloration that they have on their bodies. Come here, that looks like a juvenile. You can see very still mottled in colour, maybe a female. And the female sort of pattern is not as bold as that of the male. Are you something else? Why are you a Natal Spur Fowl? I don't know, that was weird. They're hanging around together. The feathers don't look perfect, do they? Let me just go to the Francolins very quickly while you look at it. Where is the other one? I can hear the other one making a little bit of racket in the grass. F for Francolins. Yeah, making all sorts of noise. I suppose on a windy day like this it might be a good idea to make some calls so that you can keep track of everyone. I'm going to quickly see what a juvenile Crested Francolin looks like. Oh no, maybe it wasn't a Natal Spur Fowl. I just thought that was very weird that the two of them were together like that. I know there are lots of juvenile birds running around at the moment, especially that of the Francolin kind. There he goes, running across the road. Yeah, I think that may have actually been a Natal Spur Fowl, the other one. That was unusual to have them so close together. I wouldn't think that they would have tolerated one another. Normally, they don't even tolerate, the Francolins chase the hornbills and things away. And that was quite cool. Let's see what else we've got around here. Check in the thickets nicely, because it'd be a good spot to sit underneath some of these shrubs and just keep out of the wind. Elephant dung, but not very fresh. There's a barbet just over there. A little beautiful crested barbet. No, it's not there. There we go. Well done. Now shell, is it, sorry, did you say Michelle or shell? I only caught the end of it just because it's so windy at the moment. Oh, Cheryl. Okay, there we go. Cheryl, Shell, Michelle. They all sound exactly the same. So sorry, Cheryl. You're wondering what migratory birds am I most looking forward to returning. The Wahlberg's eagles, I quite enjoyed watching them. They were really cool. The woodland kingfisher, of course, is a favorite among many. What else? Stepped eagles. That's going to be nice to see again. I enjoy seeing the different eagle species that come around this way. I'm just happy to see all the birds, in fact, and then the bee-eaters. It'll be nice to see the variety of bee-eater species that don't spend too much time here. Most of them are intra-African migrants, so they should start coming down this way. It gets exceptionally hot in October and November in the northern African countries, so they normally come down south where the temperatures are just slightly cooler, so that's quite nice. However, this is a resident, this isn't a migrant. They hang around all the time, and they're fairly common throughout South Africa. Even in the cities, you see them a lot. People like to feed them. You'll often see in all the neighborhoods lots of nails in the trees with apples and all sorts of fruits attached to them. The barbets love it. The go-away birds definitely come on through. And so do the common miners, which unfortunately have taken over certain residential areas. Now, Paulie, you've said it looks like he's got a little crown on. He does. He has got his crest perked right up, but that's exactly where you can see that they get their name from. We saw the black-collared barbet very briefly earlier, the red head, and then, of course, the black collar, which you could see, and then this one's the crested Francolin, and perfectly because of that little crest, all those feathers on top of its head. That's a beautiful shot. They also, I think, out of all the barbets, they're the prettiest. Look at that little band of red on the edge of the tail, black and white. That's always nice. And, of course, that yellow is really quite lovely. I don't know what it's feeding on at the moment. One of the spike thorns, perhaps? There's little berries of some sort that are starting to form there. And that's what it's going after. So there's another tree. I have seen some of the spike thorns actually starting to get flowers and things now. It's very cool. Aren't you beautiful? I'm sure these birds know that they are beautiful, though, because they're often very obliging when it comes to filming them or taking pictures of them. They're quite happy to sit still. And look at this one, opening up its tail and it's sort of creating a nice sort of fan look about it. But there we go. It said, right, you've had enough now. And that's fine. We will carry on. It's amazing. And sometimes it's nice. Like, we're very lucky, obviously. We're having a great time with Tristan and the leopards. And it's nice when we have sightings like this to focus on one big cat for the day and then sort of have these sort of smaller fillers. And they're all beautiful in their own way, just like that crested barbet. That's very nice. Let's see, maybe there's some sunbirds up here in the knobthorn tree. Although they'd be blown around today. They're so small and dainty. I don't know if they'd be managing to even be able to fly in a straight line on a day like today. Lots of elephants crossing here. They must have been in the road again earlier today. See, it's not so bad when it is quite hot. I don't think the animals mind too much as well, you know, coming out into the open spots. At least they've got the warmth on their shoulders, you know, warming them up nicely. But as soon as the light starts to dip and fade, and that's what it's doing now, there's definitely an icy chill in the wind. But hopefully the next time you come back to us, we'll be waiting down at Chitwa Dam. I'm going to send you back across to Tristan and his spotted friends.
Well, I hope so, Taylor. I hope you don't get lost on the way. I'm sure you won't. Obviously, you know where Chitwa Dam is, but our little friends are still very sleepy. You can see Xongile is taking it very easy, and so is Hosana. Hosana, in fact, has been hardly moving today. He's a lot sleepier than what Xongile is. Maybe